Tom in New Jersey, coming to you live on Dave in the City's podcast. Hope you will listen to me discuss the Yankees all season long.
Coast to coast, internet sports talk, Locks of the Week.
Doc Rivers continues to time and time again not get it when it comes to getting... Oh! Let him play!
How Connecticut are you? Are you wearing khakis and a polo?
Regarding Lynch, who cares? What was he going to do today? Was he going to address each portable? Oh, thank you for the question.
Cap ran through the entire Yankee lineup, but he left out one guy, and his name is Alex Rodriguez.
I like to try and forget about him because.
From Los Angeles, this is Dave in the City, brought to you by Locks of the Week Radio. Now, here's Dave Medina.
Good evening, sports fans! And a pleasure to have you here for this special Thanksgiving edition of Dave in the City. Good to have you with us from the Dave in the City studios in sunny Southern California and chilly Southern California. It just got cold again. Looking forward to a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. And a happy Thanksgiving to everybody here listening to us tonight, including my friend Karen, who's just across the way over in the kitchen. Thanksgiving time for everybody here in California. We love it. So we're glad to have you with us. And to close our week on a very short week, we have a lot to talk about in college football. What an unbelievable shakeup in the college football rankings. Unbelievable. Some crazy, unexpected turns and some twists. We'll break it all down with the Kids Club, John in Connecticut, Andy in Seattle, Ron in New Jersey, all with us tonight, we hope, for this special Thanksgiving edition. Junkman not with us tonight. He's en route to, I think, some relatives for the holidays. So we wish him well as he travels along. And some big Thanksgiving football action in the NFL. It's all coming your way with everything on the table. All the marbles in play on a rivalry weekend. Let's hit it.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
Kids Club picks week 13. My goodness, the season's just flying by. But what a hot week it was for Ron in New Jersey. He went 4-0 last week, extending his small lead in the... Oh, shoot, I didn't put the standings on my paper. But extending his small lead in the Kids Club contest with some crazy heady picks. Andy in Seattle was in second place with not a loss. He was 3-0-1. The one was the Patriots game last night, which ended in a push. But very well done all around. And it is I, Dave, in the city at 3-1. John in Connecticut went 2-2. So a very good week. Nobody had a losing week. And here are your standings after 12 weeks. Ron is in first place at 29-16-1. Dave in second at 28-18. John is in third at 25-21, and Andy in last place, but technically tied with John at 24-20-2. The two ties equal one win because ties are half wins. So, what a contest! We're down to the last 4 weeks of the season, and the format for the last 4 weeks of the season will be like this. We will do our regular format this week with two conference championship with two rivalry games, and then 2 NFL games. Next week, we will select 2 conference championships or other assorted action in college football plus the 2 NFL. Week 15, we will do just the 2 NFL. And the final week, 2 bowl games, 2 NFL games. So quite a finish. Be there for all of it with us here in the city. So let's introduce our panel tonight as of the moment. We will introduce first the winner of last week's incredible Week 12 action, Ron in New Jersey. Welcome back to the show. How's it going, Ron, tonight?
Good, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing swell, and this is a good way to close the week. It's been, even though it's only been a short week at work, it's just been pretty busy. So I'll be relieved to leave it behind as we all travel to our relatives for the holidays. So John in Connecticut's also with us tonight. John, welcome to the show. How's it going tonight?
Pretty good, Dave. Thanks for having me back on. You're right, the season goes by so fast, I can't believe we only have 4 weeks left for the picks. So that's some really good stuff. Everyone's doing well this year. Yeah, it's been a great season for all of us. I'm very proud of everyone for the great picks, including our friend Andy in Seattle, who's also with us tonight. Hi, Andy. How's it going this evening?
Oh, it's great, Dave. You know, the sun's always shining in your world. I mean, you can put a positive spin on 0-4. Thankfully, no one did that this week, so we're good to go.
Now we're good. 3-0-1. Pretty good job out of you, Andy. I mean, the Patriots even almost had a chance to make you go 4-0, as a matter of fact, last night.
Yeah, well, Mr. Mike, he's been doubting the Patriots all year long, but this week he was pretty spot on when he said Brady's gonna miss his weapons, and it's part of the game in the NFL. Players get hurt. No one's 100%. The roster on November 24th is going to look a lot different than it does on Labor Day weekend, and every team goes through it. And it's not always about scorching the earth and covering every game. Sometimes it's just surviving in advance and do whatever you need to do, piecemeal it, and see what happens in January. You stagger into playoffs. That's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I got you there. It's been a very good season for the Patriots, and withstanding the injuries, it's really that's part of the NFL season. There's adversity that goes with it. So we have 4 weeks. We have a few weeks left in the NFL. Actually, it's about half the year left. So it'll be interesting to see how
Is
that.
Junkman coming on today?
No, not tonight. He's in transit, so he's going to travel to I think relatives with his girlfriend. So no Junkman tonight. Just the usual, just the football scenarios. So let's get to the.
Because I gotta go at 10:30 your time or
okay.
East Coast time.
Well, we're only going to 10:30 anyway, so we have a short show tonight. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So let's get to it right now. The big story in college football: upsets. Michigan State upsets Ohio State. An incredible situation because it really renders the Ohio State-Michigan game pretty not necessarily meaningless, but just a lot of the juice comes out of it because otherwise. Ohio State-Michigan would have been a division championship. So this was definitely a big blow to Ohio State and Michigan, as it turns out. And also in college football, UCLA shuts down Utah. LSU blown away again, this time by Ole Miss. Notre Dame with a pretty bad performance against Boston College. And Oklahoma nearly blew a big lead versus TCU, while Baylor blows out Oklahoma State. But that apparently didn't sway the panel of the College Football Playoff Committee because Oklahoma is now number 4. I see number 3 up here. Are they third? Are they really third? They're third. That's crazy. They're number 3 in the polls in the new rankings. Clemson number 1, Bama number 2, Oklahoma number 3, according to this tweet I have, and Iowa number 4. Michigan State, I thought they were going to be number 4, but they're number 5. And Notre Dame, even though they won, played so miserably against Boston College with all kinds of turnovers, like 4 turnovers, maybe even 5 turnovers. They dropped 2 spots despite the win. So that's the rankings as of right now. Definitely some questionable decision making by the panel, I think. Let's go to Ron first. We haven't heard from you in a while. Did they overvalue Oklahoma in this latest ranking?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't get how, and I know it's going to change and everything will sort itself out, but I don't see how they can justify putting in Oklahoma over Michigan State when, I think one of the biggest factors is the quality of the opponents and your schedule, and you have Michigan State, who I know they win on some fluke plays and. Always down to the wire, but they've beaten 3 top 10 teams this year, or 3 top 20 teams in the rankings right now in Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan. So I don't see how they get number 5, and Oklahoma, who should have lost to TCU, to a bad TCU team that's banged up and was down to a backup quarterback who was god-awful. And they needed a failed 2-point conversion to win the game. I don't see how that win in the mind of the voters is stronger than Michigan State's win, where really they defensively dominated Ohio State the entire game. I just don't get that.
Yeah, I think I think the way that Oklahoma lost the game was really crazy. I'll be honest, I didn't see the end of the game because I was watching the Cotto Canelo fight, but wow. I mean, they basically had the game tied, but TCU decided to go for 2 at the end, and a very questionable decision. People didn't like it, and it was a little bit of a tricky situation. I don't know. I don't think I'd have done it myself as TCU. It just depends on the game and the team, but I didn't think it was a good call. So I didn't think
well,
that.
you know, they did earlier because they were losing something like 30-7 or something like that, and they actually went for 2 on their first touchdown when they started to make a comeback, and it failed. So in reality, they should have been kicking the extra point to win the game, and instead, I think that influenced Gary Patterson to try the 2-point conversion to win it, and it didn't work out.
No, it didn't, and that's why 2-point conversions early in the quarter are just not a good call. It usually seems to bite people back in the long run. So let's go to Andy on the college football rankings, and as we mentioned, Notre Dame drops 2 spots to number 6. Notre Dame fans not happy with the decision, but Iowa still hangs in the top 4 at number 4. So let's get your feeling for the latest college football rankings, Andy.
My feelings, well, boo-hoo to the Notre Dame people that feel like they've been ripped off or undervalued. Your team is boring. It's nondescript. BC is not good. This whole program has spent a fair amount of time ripping them from offense. Their offense is just, to say it's woefully inadequate would be gracious. They suck. Their coach is an absolute caveman, and they were able to score on Notre Dame and make it interesting. I know like a 10-point game in the fourth quarter, but you know what, Notre Dame? You need style points. You are the antithesis of Art Briles' show. You do nothing pretty. And you turn the ball 5 times in your own or in the BC red zone, you have no one to blame but yourself. And you want to pat yourself on the back for having a nice fourth quarter comeback in the rain against Clemson. You still lost the game. You have no one to blame but yourself. Your schedule's been a cupcake after that Clemson show. And it wasn't a show because you lost. And now you have to depend on a Stanford game, and that game loses juice because Stanford lost to Oregon. So you are relying on a lot of things to happen. You have no one to blame but your goddamn self, and you're going to play. You're still probably going to get in a decent bowl anyway. You're not national championship caliber. Accept it and move the frick on. Anyway, these other schools, I think Iowa, too, all these Iowa guys are like, our team should be there. Well, now you're there, and now let's see what happens. You're in the spot. You're in the playoffs. If the season we're in today, you're gonna play. So all your whining is paying off. However, you have to beat Nebraska. You're only giving one at Nebraska. Nebraska's a 5-6 team with a ding-dong Riley coach, and it would be fitting if Nebraska wins. Anyone that needs a freaking lesson on Iowa, all they need to do is look at the point spread. It speaks volumes on what people perceive your program to be. You're 10-0 or 11-0, and yet you're just a meager 1-point favorite against a nondescript, not very good Nebraska team. So we'll see what happens. Michigan State. This is where I can kind of empathize with the Michigan State fan, because if Alabama were in the same position as they were last week as Michigan State, and they beat the equivalent of Ohio State in the SEC, you can bet your ass they would be rewarded for this win. Michigan State was without Connor Cook. They were entering a hostile environment in the horseshoe. Ohio State, everyone says Urban Meyer is this offensive genius, and he saves his best plays and the best games for last, and they neutered him. They neutered that offense for the entire game. And I don't care if the rain was a factor, if the Ohio State fans said it was a beautiful day, our offense would be more high octane. I don't care. That's bull. And, for Michigan State to pull off that win, a 15-point underdog, and not get any traction in this latest bowl standings, it's a little rotten. But then again, beat Nebraska, and we're not having this conversation. So it's interesting. And it's a shame that Baylor's probably going to come a little bit short, too. And it's a shame that the Big 12 doesn't have a championship game because, they used to, and it was one of the premier championship games, as recently as, a couple of years ago. And now they're definitely penalized because of the lack of the championship game.
It's true. I mean, that's where the Big 12's had. I mean, it bit the Big 12 big time last year too, where the lack of conference championship game really kept them out of the college football playoff, and that was a raw deal. And similarly, like you said, it's a pretty raw deal for Michigan State. It seems like context seemed to play a factor in them not making the top 4 this week. So to expand on that point, let's go to John in Connecticut, who had similar sentiment on Twitter. Yeah, did Michigan State get a bad break here with these rankings?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the whole point of it is them saying we do a new one every single week, we rip off the previous weeks and we start fresh, and you look at the season to date, there's no way in the world you could rank Oklahoma above Michigan State. Now, granted, if this ranking comes out at the end of next week and Oklahoma is 3 after adding another top 10 win onto their resume over Oklahoma State, then I could see it. But they move up 4 spots after beating a TCU team without their 2 best players, 2 of the best players in the country, and Trevon Boykin and Josh Doxson. And they move up 4 spots. It's just mind-boggling to me. And TCU is getting no respect from the committee, too. So it's kind of like they're almost like a double standard, or they're hypocritical, and that if TCU's not that good, then how can you move Oklahoma up 4 spots for beating them? While Michigan State, they go on the road to beat Ohio State. Granted, you can just see there's a lot of internal problems there at Ohio State. There's something going on there. Kids, Ezekiel Elliott had that huge rant after the game. Just not a good scenario there. But in any event, credit to Michigan State. They have 3 top 15 wins, 2 on the road. Granted, the Michigan win was a little fluky, but hey, that's why you played 60 minutes and they won the game. But still, I thought for sure that they would have been moved up to the number 4 spot. But in the end, like I said, it's all kind of a moot point. If Oklahoma wins next week against Oklahoma State, they're pretty likely to get that spot. Even if Notre Dame wins, I don't think a win over Stanford will move the needle enough to get them into the top 4. And, of course, you have the Big Ten between Iowa and Michigan State. It'll be interesting to see, if Iowa were to lose this week and then they were to beat Michigan State in the Big Ten title game, would they still get that 4th spot? We'll see. I'm assuming that Michigan State is going to beat Penn State, but you never know what can happen. I mean, that could open up a whole can of worms if they were to lose.
Ooh.
And Michigan is suddenly back in the mix, because I think they'll beat Ohio State, and then they'd be playing for the Big Ten title. It's crazy. Another thing to note about these rankings, the SEC is just a joke this year. I saw something yesterday where they had a listing of all the 8 teams that were ranked before the season, and literally the only 2 teams that are still ranked are Alabama and Mississippi State. Alabama and Ole Miss. Out of 8 teams that are ranked before the season. Florida just looks miserable lately. If they lose to Florida State, then the SEC has to send a team to the Sugar Bowl. They might not even have a team in the top 16 by the end of this, which is, besides Alabama, obviously, which is just crazy. So very interesting, these rankings at this point. But like I said, it'll all shake itself out the next week or so. Unless there's crazy upsets, if Clemson loses or Alabama loses, I think we can pretty much pencil in the 4 is going to be Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, or Notre Dame for 1 spot if Oklahoma were to lose, and then the Big Ten champion. So, and the Pac-12 will be left out this year.
I want to add this too. I think, as Andy pointed out, there's some tangible potential for for Iowa to lose this game against Nebraska. It's on the road too. It's at Lincoln. It is pretty telling that it's a 1-point spread. I was thinking, they'd probably be giving 4 or 5, 1 point. I'm like, that does not say much at all. So let's just give it to Ron for any final thoughts about the rankings so far, and then we'll. Actually, before I do that, John, major props to your UConn Huskies for taking down Houston. That is a huge win. That was an incredible job by their defense.
Yeah, Dave, I mentioned it on the show last week that it was a perfect spot for UConn. I didn't predict a win. I mean, I thought they were going to play well. I gave them a shot because it was just one of those things where Houston, they did not need the game at all. They were playing Navy this week for the division title. If they won that, they'd be playing for the big bowl, and they were never going to be in the playoffs. So, and UConn, coming off a bye, home game, needed the win for bowl eligibility, and man, their defense just played unbelievable. Our starting quarterback, Brian Sheriffs, got hurt. It was just this targeting play that pretty much a dirty play by the Houston players, and he got knocked out. So our backup had to come in, and he did enough. But the defense is really what won them the game. And I criticized DITCOW before the season, but I'm all on board now. What is a tremendous job he's done this season, and I'm hoping that they can get to the Pinstripe Bowl in Yankee Stadium. I definitely would be in attendance for that one.
That'd be a nice spot, yeah. That'd be pretty good. You mentioned that the Houston game, this Houston game for Houston was not a necessary to win game. And I think you mentioned this on the podcast, but it didn't really sink in until I was halfway through the game. The USC-Oregon game was basically meaningless. It would do nothing for Oregon because they couldn't. There was no way that they could get into the North Division. I think Stanford had that down. They won that division already. And for USC, even if they lose, just beating UCLA will own them the tiebreaker versus them and Utah. So they didn't even need to win the game, which they didn't. But turns out that either way, it was really just all on UCLA's win. They won, and now UCLA-USC is going to be a de facto division championship. And this is huge. You might think that USC against Stanford in the conference championship is a layup for Stanford. I'm not so sure. I know that they lost and they got beat around pretty well on the offensive line. Stanford was having their way with the running game, right? But usually that matchup's pretty close. So if it ends up being those two teams in the conference championship, I'm not ruling anything out. UCLA a little less so, but this is all going to be moot anyway because I think UCLA is going to beat USC despite being an underdog. So, Ron, final thoughts on anything from last week, and then we'll get to picks. We'll go quickly because we got to get. I'd love to preview all these games.
Yeah, I think everybody hit the nail on the head in terms of the rankings. I can't fathom how Iowa's in there, even though they're undefeated. You look at that team and what's their signature win this year? Yeah, because that's a big, a big buzzword with the committee. Signature wins. Their best win is against Northwestern. I mean, you talk about a fluff schedule. I mean, that is the Iowa Hawkeyes. So I don't get their rankings, but like I said, I'm sure everything will sort itself out. In a couple weeks, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Iowa loses to Nebraska this week.
I don't think any of us would be surprised, honestly. I mean, it just seems like, as you mentioned, they seem very ordinary, as you would put it in dub speak. So we're going to keep an eye on that one. All right, Ron, so you were 4-0 last week. Tremendous job by you, which means you get the first turn at the picks. So it is all yours for college football picks, week 13. All yours.
All right. Sounds good. First pick, I am going to take Kansas State minus 20 over Kansas, which might seem like a weird pick, but I was reading up on it this week, and I think the last 5 games between the teams, Kansas State's won by an average of something like 30-something points, and this Kansas team isn't good. It might be the worst that they've put out in recent memory, and that's saying a lot. So, Bill Snyder will have his team amped up for the rivalry game. So I'll take Kansas State minus 20 against Kansas. And in my second game, John touched on it a little bit. The Florida Gators have just looked very, very vanilla and ordinary lately. So I'm going to take Florida State minus 2 against Florida. I think Florida State is playing better right now. They seem to found their niche under the backup quarterback McGuire, and Dalvin Cook has put on a show this year. He's Mike Francesa's favorite player in college football, and he's certainly worthy of a Heisman to be a Heisman nominee. So I'll take Florida State minus 2 over Florida and Kansas State minus 20 over Kansas.
All right, thanks very much for the picks, Ron. Now it's time for Andy in Seattle and his Week 13 college football picks. Andy, it's all yours. Take it away.
Okay, well, here we go. I thought the cupboard was a little bare, but I'm sure by Friday and Saturday we'll be more keen to fire on these games. But it's Tuesday. It's early. You have to talk about a couple games. So, eeny, miny, mo. There's no Spurrier to pick every week, but there's Baylor. I think we've taken Baylor at least 5, maybe a half dozen times this year. So why not keep it continue? The quarterback scenario is still topsy-turvy, but I still saw a line. I saw Baylor -1 at TCU, with Stitham or Stidham, whatever his name is, questionable, and the backup we might have to play, or the backup to the backup, the third stringer might have to play. But I'm not afraid. I'm confident. I think Bryles, he's got confidence, obviously. He played well last week. It's a system, and we made this joke before. Francesa behind the center in the Art Bryles system could probably throw for 300 yards against a certain team. So why not? And I know the odds are very much stacked against Baylor, but they have to think positive. And TCU, I think they're better than TCU. Whether they play them in Waco or at TCU on Mars, I think 9 out of 10 times Baylor is going to beat TCU, especially a TCU team that's all banged up now. And it's a good matchup between two coaches that they love each other, not each other like themselves. Gary loves Gary and Art loves Art. So it'll be a pretty good matchup. It's Friday afternoon. Get ready, get set, let's go. It's a shame. For game number 2, I would have taken Washington State in the Apple Cup, but they don't have a line either because their quarterback got a concussion against Colorado, and his status remains unknown. So with the shelf even barer, we're going to take Alabama, giving 14 at Auburn. Yeah, it's a rivalry game. Yeah, Alabama's had problems at Auburn or even at Alabama in this game in the past, but this is very much an anti-Auburn pick coming off that awful game with Georgia in Auburn. I don't know who's going to play for Auburn. Is it going to be Jeremiah Johnson? Is it going to be that white dude? I don't know, but they are lost. They are just offensively just a mess. And what's funny is the coach, that's his forte, the offense. But this year, they had all sorts of wild expectations. I think Herb Street had them in his top 4. And by the way, can Herb Street, does he get a free pass on basically going 0 for 4 on his top 4? 2 of them were Arizona State and Auburn. I'm sorry. That's just atrocious. But no one cares what Herb Street says at this point. It's November. Who cares what he said in August? But he's more times than not, he's actually pretty good. But anyway, back to this game. Auburn, when they are clicking on all cylinders, their offense looks good. But they just could not get it together this year, and they're just so much more horizontal than vertical, and you can't do that against an Alabama defense that is quick and powerful and big and strong. Like Mike said, they are just an NFL factory on the defensive side of things, and they're not too bad on offense either. And Auburn's defense, if you watch them play in that second half of the Georgia game, they were getting shredded to pieces, and they were giving up long kick returns and punt returns. So this will be Alabama's game. A heavy dose of Derrick Henry. The former Florida State quarterback Coker will just, he'll make some plays here and there. But Alabama got to get ready and take care of business and get them set up for the SEC championship game in Atlanta. And then, unless something crazy happens, they'll be in that playoff. And so this will be the first thing of their, championship quest. Take care of business in the rivalry game against Auburn and win by 14.
All right, so we've got Andy taking Bama in the Iron Bowl, given the points, and then Baylor -1 is 2 college football picks. Now it's my turn for my picks. And as I've done for a good part of the season, I usually try to go to the less heralded games, the ones that aren't getting as much buzz or attention. So I'm going to start with Marshall plus 10.5 at Western Kentucky. And do you guys remember this matchup last year? What a game this was. These two were trading touchdowns back and forth. It ended 67-66 in overtime, with Western Kentucky beating out Marshall and Hadim Cato, who was in line to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. Well, Cato's not in there anymore, but Chase Litton, a freshman quarterback, now quarterbacks Marshall. The senior leader of the team today is Taj Letman, a senior safety, and regarded by several as a team leader. And, I mean, I'm not going to say that Marshall plays good defense, but I just think that they're going to put up another good effort against Western Kentucky. I think the line's too big. It should be a fun affair. And I love Western Kentucky. And they've had some great wins, and they've won by a lot of points against a lot of teams. But this is essentially a rivalry game. And for all intents and purposes, these look like the two best teams in Conference USA. So this is going to be great. And I do think it's going to be a closer game. So Marshall plus 10.5. Game number 2. I had 2 in mind. I'm going to go with the Pac-12 because I know that conference better. Cal, -4 against Arizona State and over in Berkeley. I love this game. I think that, look, both teams are not good defensively, yes. But the odds of Todd Graham making a bunch of mistakes and turnovers leading to points, really good. So Jared Goff will finish strong in the regular season with them giving 4 against Arizona State and the Sun Devils. So once again, Marshall plus 10.5, Cal -4 for the Week 13 Dave in the City college picks. So now it is John in Connecticut's turn to give the picks for Week 13. Again, very close contest, so let's see what you have for college football Week 13, John.
All right, Dave, my theme this week is teams fighting for bowl eligibility. I found in the last couple of years it is a very strong play. Even though these teams have not had very good seasons up to this point, they're 5-5 or 5-16. They more often than not are extremely motivated and give big performances, trying to get that 6th win, especially at home. We saw it with UConn last week. So we'll start here again in the AAC, and I'm going to take East Carolina as a pick-em at home against Cincinnati. We bet against Cincinnati last week. I absolutely love South Florida, and they just destroyed Cincinnati. It was like 55-3 at halftime. Cincinnati just did not show up. So that's kind of a little worrisome that they're not going to play as bad this week. But again, it's another road game. You don't trust Tommy Tuberville on the road. Their defense is pretty bad. And East Carolina, they're not a very good team at all either. But they're at home. They can score a little bit. And with that little extra motivation on the line, playing for a bowl game, you got to figure they can win this one. It should be a pretty high-scoring affair. So give me East Carolina pick 'em, game 1 versus Cincinnati. All right, so game 2, we will take the upset and we will call it, and I will pick Nebraska for the outright win. Not only the cover. We will go with Nebraska. Dave, my line I had was 2.5. Whatever it is, I don't care. They're going to win this game. They've been close all year. They finally got that breakthrough win against Michigan State, and you could just see this game setting up when that happened. Because then I think they had to beat Rutgers the next week, and even that was like it's like beating a high school team at this point. So just to set up this game, they had a bye week last week, so they had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. Even in all their losses this year, they're pretty poorly coached, but even in all their losses, they were in every single game this year. And like we've said all year long, Iowa's not exactly, the 4th-ranked team in the country. They had some okay wins, but they're just not exactly dominant. And this is just the perfect spot for them to get picked off. Nebraska off the bye, playing for bowl eligibility, pretty much in games all year. And dare I say, like I said earlier, I don't exactly think Iowa has to win this game. If they lose here and then they beat Michigan State next week, who's going to keep them out of the playoffs? I think that scenario very likely could happen. So give me Nebraska, +1, 2.5, whatever it is, I'll take it. They're going to win this game. So give me Nebraska and East Carolina for the 2 picks this week.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2.5 on that. I'm going to let you have 2.5 for that game. That's a good pick. That is a great pick. It's bold. I love it. I love every second of it. I just hope I can see that happen. That'd be really fun. Iowa's been dragging down this top 4 all year, so it would be fitting if Nebraska won. Like you said, they've been in every game. I mean, they lost to BYU on a last-second touchdown. They beat Michigan at the very end of the game. Even the wins or the losses, they're both about the same. So this is gonna be very interesting to watch. To let you guys know, and this is for you, Ron. My alternate pick: Maryland -1 at Rutgers.
You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. Who do you think you are?
Holy crap, that's a horrible game. I feel bad for anyone who has to watch that.
Can you believe that? Maryland is giving a point after losing 8 games in a row.
Shut your mouth. That Rutgers team can win, and if every other team on the cusp of bowl eligibility loses, you might see a 5-7 Rutgers team in the Pinstripe Bowl, Dave. So you shut your goddamn mouth and you root for RU.
Oh my God! If that happens and Rutgers takes the Pinstripe Bowl away from UConn, I will be seriously upset about that scenario.
Oh,
if Rutgers makes a bowl this year, I swear to God, I will quit the Kids Club picks and stop watching football altogether.
Oh man, just imagine that sight.
I can't believe they actually. I can't wait to tell my kids that they had a primetime game with Rutgers and Ohio State.
That's crazy. That is.
Oh my God! Dave, that is the local story. In NJ.com and that stuff is all the scenarios where Rutgers can make a bowl at 5-7.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
I mean, it is grasping for straws.
God, it would be a travesty if they, and even with 50 bowls now, imagining them making a bowl would be just crazy. So, well, let's abandon that topic for a moment, and let's get to the big games this week. We have a lot of them, so hopefully we've got enough time to cover them all. Iowa, Nebraska, we've pretty much touched a lot of that already, so we'll leave that one alone. Ohio State, Michigan, and once again, it's on at 9 in the morning here on the West Coast, 12 out east from the Big House. And, John said that Michigan should win the game, and I tend to feel the same way. So we'll roll down the line and get your thoughts on the game. Who do you think is going to win? We will begin with Andy, Ohio State versus Michigan. I still think you got to go all out in this game. So who do you have winning this game over there in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, well, so I'm not familiar with all the tie breaks now. How does Michigan State get in the Big Ten championship game? Who do they need to? Do they want Ohio State to beat Michigan?
No, they just have to beat. They just have to beat Penn State, and they're in.
Yep.
So Michigan State's got the inside track.
Yep.
Beat both teams.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm having a. I guess I'm having a Mike moment. That's right. They lost to Nebraska, so it's all moot. Listen, from a coaching standpoint, I lean Harbaugh over Urban. I know Michigan's taken some great steps this year. They, if you watch their first game against Utah and side by side with their most recent game, it's probably night and day. I know, even the most diehard Michigan fans going into the year had some major reservations about their quarterback. And I know Florida, as John has alluded to, has not looked very good as of late. But between McElwain and Harbaugh, those are some really good seasons out of both of them. Both those schools were in very much rebuilding mode, and they just had great seasons. But back to this big game, I do think Michigan should win this game. I know Ohio State probably still has the edge on big plays, a 50, 80-yard play, 50-yard play, big run, big pass. I still think Ohio State has the edge in that category, but I think Michigan will be able to pound the ball, long drives, and maybe force some turnovers. And I think I guess I'm a weirdo. I think karma exists in sports, and I think there's just too much bad juju in that Ohio State clubhouse right now, especially, Ezekiel Elliott. He's a great talent. The quarterbacks are great talents, but, whether it's Dewey's or calling out coach for, bad play calls, it's festers. And I think this has just been, a season that, they won the national championship last year, and they were expected to kind of just keep it continue this year, and obviously it hasn't turned out that way, and there's too much bad energy. And I think on the flip side, Michigan's got, outside of that crazy punt block/fumble. It's been a storybook season for them. So I'd like to see Michigan win. I think, I don't know, and now everyone's saying Harbaugh might flirt with the Lions or some other, Texas. So, you never know with these big coaches. They're hired guns. But I'd like to see Harbaugh stay there and see what he can do with his recruiting class in the next couple of years. So give me Michigan.
Yeah, Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines have a really bright future ahead of them, and they haven't even used all his recruits yet. That's what's so crazy about it. He's just begun to recruit. That's what's so crazy. It's going to be fun to watch this team over the next 3 years. So let's go, John in Connecticut. Your prediction for Ohio State, Michigan. You said Michigan, right? So let's expand on that then in that case.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the Ohio State offense is in shambles, which you would have never have thought at the beginning of the season. I mean, all their players are healthy, and they can't score, and they can't move the ball. And it's not going to be any easier against this Michigan defense. I think the one thing that Harbaugh has done for them is he's just made that an incredibly tough team, tough, hard-nosed team. And I think they'll win this game, and Ohio State is going to be licking their wounds. I think it'll be like a pretty low scoring, but maybe like 23-14 kind of game. It just too much turmoil at Ohio State, and I think that loss last week just really takes a lot out of them. I know it's the whole big game rivalry and whatever, but I really think Michigan is going to put a hurting on them in this game. I think they'll win this one pretty comfortably.
And for Michigan, as they try to win this game, they'll hope for a miracle too over with Penn State and Michigan State. Maybe Penn State can win, and Team Unclever could somehow gut out a very shocking win. We will see. Ron in New Jersey, let's get your final words on Ohio State, Michigan. Who do you like?
Yeah, I like Michigan as well. Ohio State's just been, if you think about it all year long, they should be killing teams with the talent that they have on offense and defense, and they've really coasted by in most of their games. And it finally caught up to them when they played a team as hard-nosed as Michigan State. And I think a Michigan team coached by Harbaugh is just as tough as Michigan State. I think Urban Meyer made a huge mistake at the start of the year with the quarterback situation. In hindsight, I think he should have probably went to J.T. Barrett to begin and let him develop. But he went with Cardell Jones for a while, and I think it threw off the mojo of that team. And you're still seeing it to this day. And they just don't look like the same team that they were at the end of last year. And I think Michigan has a little bit more to play for. So I like Michigan.
And just to recap, I also like Michigan in this game. The defense is just that much better. I mean, you talk about Michigan being hard-nosed. Their defense might be the best defense in the Big Ten this year. So it's going to be a pretty good week for them, we think. So now let's go to the next game. UCLA, USC, and John had teased this all last week, and I love it. This is going to be a big game to decide the South Division. A lot to play for because the winner will be in the Pac-12 championship game. And I don't even feel no matchup, though, because most likely they will play Stanford in that Pac-12 championship game. But nevertheless, I mean, a shot to win the Pac-12 is a great opportunity. So UCLA playing so much better. Their defense looks great right now, completely dominated against Utah on the road, no less. But here's what's really funny about UCLA. They are an awful-looking team when they're at home. When they're on the road, they look great. So it seems to me like I feel like UCLA is going to win this one despite the fact that they are not favored in the matchup. So UC's had a nice rebound of their season. They have some things going to them. They have some great talent. I mean, Ronald Jones Jr. is way fun to watch. He's a freshman running back. I mean, this guy is really fun. It's very dynamic out in the field. And I feel like he's going to be really good for years to come. And Juju Smith-Schuster, battling injuries, but when he's healthy, he's looking great out there. Even when he's not, he still can make some catches. So I think those two have done a really good job this year. Cam Smith looking great. I'm just going to do this kind of USC recap scenario now because I feel like this is going to be it for their season. And the one guy I'm not impressed by for USC is Kessler. Honestly, I don't think he's that good. I just never really thought that he had the instincts to really succeed on big-time college football. He holds on to the ball way too much. He gets sacked a lot. And he makes dumb plays once in a while. He does have the ability to get the ball downfield, but he just takes too long to get a play figured out. So I don't think he's got much NFL potential just from what I've seen. But put it all together, I think UCLA, even though they had a weird season, I think they'll end up winning this one, even at the Coliseum. So that's my take. Let's go to, I think it's Andy next. Andy, what do you think about UCLA-USC?
Hey, no one cares about USC, UCLA. This is like Mike talking horse racing. You're West Coast. Everyone lives on the East Coast. I'm just kidding. It'll be an entertaining game. It could be whoever has the ball last. Mora is a love or hate coach kind of coach. He can be kind of tough to take with his the actors on the sideline. I love Rosen. But you're right. The past 2 weeks leading up to that Utah game, their defense was getting shredded, and then they kept the Utah team in check. Although no Booker was huge for Utah because Booker is basically the cog of that offense. But they still won fair and square. What frustrates me about USC is they're kind of a hot dog kind of team, like. They show flashes of brilliance, and then they'll go through long stretches where they look lethargic, they look apathetic, they're not converting third downs, they're not playing defense against teams that they should be able to stop in their sleep. First half against Arizona, first half against Colorado, the entire game against Washington, the game against Stanford after the first quarter. And then they look great against teams like Arizona State. And, they can definitely score when they're motivated. I don't know what needs to be dangled in front of them for them to be motivated for an entire game. Well, obviously the rivalry game against UCLA, that's the best. I mean, if you can't get motivated for your crosstown rival game, then you shouldn't be playing this sport. So I would probably lean USC in this game. Obviously not the season that they wanted to have with, their coaching problems, and definitely did not meet those very high expectations going into the year, but they can definitely, salvage some goodness if they win, and then they get to the Pac-12 championship game, and then obviously the coaching search will, it's obviously ongoing now, I bet, behind the scenes, but that'll be a fun kind of story to follow, who's going to be that next USC coach. But I think Rosen will throw for a ton of yardage, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think UCLA's defense will be a little more exposed this week than they were last week against Utah.
And now let's go to John because he was the first to bring this up, this potential Rose Bowl ramifications with this game. So now this moment has come, John in Connecticut. Who do you like to win this game?
Yeah, I thought this moment would come, but I had no idea who was going to win. I mean, there's two pretty unpredictable teams, to be honest. Like you said, Dave, UCLA plays much better on the road. I just think they're a little more consistent overall than USC. And I agree with Andy. I really like Rosen. You could tell even a couple of years he's just going to be phenomenal for them. You just got to worry about Jim Mora and his Mongo moments. So I'll go with UCLA, but not very confident in this pick. But I think they'll get the win. Should be a pretty entertaining game to watch, though.
I agree with the both of you on the entertainment value. This will be a really fun game. The fans will be into it as usual. So, Ron, what's your prediction for UCLA USC?
Yeah, I like UCLA, but as with any other rivalry game, everything goes out the window. When it comes down to it, I could see either team winning, but UCLA's impressed me the last couple of weeks. Rosen's really settled into his role there, so I like UCLA.
All right, so UCLA getting some support from the Kids Club for this week's game. But USC definitely a game competitor, honestly. A lot of talent on that team. It's just a matter of whether they will have the focus and the mental ability to execute once the game starts. So, it's a very sloppy team. We've seen all the penalties they make too, but it should be a fun one. Either way, it'll be a great time. Now for the two big Big 12 matchups, and with no playoff game, with no conference championship game, this is basically going to decide whether they get in the show or not get in the show. So the two games in question, Baylor TCU, Oklahoma State. Battle of each respective state. Baylor over there in Waco, TCU in somewhere in Texas, and then the Battle of Oklahoma further to the north. So will Baylor take care of business against a beat-up TCU team? Will Oklahoma take care of its business against an Oklahoma State team that got blistered by Baylor? Let's find out. We start with John in Connecticut. Who do you like in each of these two Big 12 games?
Yeah, we'll go with Baylor as well. I think TCU is just too banged up right now on both offense and defense. I don't even know the status of their star players, but I just think Baylor is. I think they're the more. I shouldn't say they're the more healthy team. They could be down to their third stringer, but TCU has just been devastated by injury, especially on defense too. And like we've been saying, any quarterback Baylor puts back there is going to have just tons of weapons to throw the ball to. And I like them to get the win. The other game, do we even know if Baker Mayfield is going to play? Because if Trevor Knight has to play 4 quarters, they're in trouble. He was not very good at all when he had to come in and relief. So if he's playing, I like Oklahoma State, but if Baker Mayfield is playing, you got to figure Oklahoma will somehow win, even though it's a road game, it's a rivalry game, the whole thing. But I just think Oklahoma State's been a little overrated all year. So for me, I guess that one depends on who is playing at quarterback, and if Mayfield is playing and starting, I definitely think the Sooners will take care of business.
Okay, I have a report from ESPN from a day ago. It says Baker Mayfield clears concussion tests. He is cleared to practice, so that sounds positive. I think he'll probably start. So,
well, if that's the case, they'll probably go with Oklahoma then.
Yeah, hopefully it holds up though. We'll see if that carries over. So now to Andy, what do you make of the two Big 12 games? Who do you like in each one?
Yeah, well, obviously I like Baylor because I picked them in the segment, and so just moving on to the Bedlam game. Everyone says how Gundy was exposed last week, and I guess that was true. They're winning all these games, coming back from some big deficits, winning, 63 to 51, and, like we always say, the space age football. And this is almost like unpredictable as the USC-UCLA game with two coaches that you really wouldn't want to trust coaching your team for obvious reasons. Gundy's a hothead, and Stoops has been known to come up small in big spots. And having said that, I think Oklahoma State's defense is just too bad to just keep any offense in check. And that, like you said, if Mr. Mayfield is gonna play, then that bodes well for them as opposed to Trevor Knight. Trevor Knight's a louse. I know he got the job last year, but clearly once he got benched for this dude, he basically just said, you know what, after it, I'm just holding a clipboard and a number 2 pencil, and I'm just gonna just be a dodo. So that's basically my hard-hitting analysis on Bedlam.
All right, sounds good, Andy. Let's go to Ron in New Jersey. Let's get your feel for these two Big 12 matchups.
Yeah, I'm with everybody else. I like Baylor. I think, it goes to show you Art Briles' genius, where you can plug and play almost anybody in that offense, and and you can put up 40, 50 points a game. And as far as Oklahoma State goes, I mean, you look at Oklahoma's team, and they should be, one of the top 2 teams in the country. With the talent that they have, they should be killing teams, by 30, 40 points, and they just don't. They have top talent everywhere on the team. Mayfield is having a Heisman year. They have Perrine and Mixon, Sterling Shepard. They have Eric Stryker on defense, all probably NFL guys, and you just can't trust Stoops in a big spot, and he almost blew it last week. And I kind of think Gundy and Oklahoma State overlooked Baylor because they were so beat up. I think they were really looking forward to this game. My heart says Oklahoma State. If Mayfield plays, Oklahoma will probably win, but I do think Oklahoma State will cover the 6.5, which is the line right now. So I hope Oklahoma State wins.
Good stuff, Ron. Very nicely done with your predictions. And we'll see. I mean, the Big 12 is certainly good for those shootouts and what Andy would call the space age game. So I feel like we're in for some fun all the way across the board. A couple other games to highlight, but we won't have time to do full previews. Navy against Houston. I am very interested to see who wins this one because Navy's been playing very well of late. Houston definitely, they lost to UConn, but they're just fine because they were undefeated going into the game. So they'll be in good shape. And then Notre Dame, Stanford. It really is just up to Notre Dame to see if they can take care of business. I have my doubts. We'll see if that takes place. So let's go to the NFL. And if we have time, we can go back to the Notre Dame-Stanford game and get your guys' opinions. But we should carry on. NFL scenarios. The Cardinals still looking pretty good. They beat the Bengals on Sunday Night Football. Pretty good game, though. Bengals, they came off that terrible loss to Houston, and they went in, and they were very competitive. They even had the lead to start the game, 7-0, but they still lost the game, but they played pretty well overall. Packers beat the Vikings in a much-needed win to snap a 3-game losing streak. And Brock Osweiler's debut for the Broncos in his start, pretty good. Got 2 touchdown passes in his first win at Chicago. Joe Flacco's out for the season after beating the Rams. He tore his ACL, but then played the rest of the game. That's weird. And then also weird is that Case Keenum got concussed during the game, and for the last minute, 7 seconds, Jeff Fisher let him play. I'm like, what are you doing? So you have that. The Chiefs beat the Chargers 33-3. I mean, if the Chargers can't come up in a game like this, then I'm just done. I'm pretty much done with them. Raiders lose. There's a lot of stuff that went on. Romo won. Jets lose. There's lots to talk about. I don't want to waste any time with this. So let us begin. Let's go back to Andy in Seattle. Let's get your recap of week number 11 NFL action.
Yep. Well, yeah, I'm a little bitter. I bet John's a little bitter at the way the ending of the Sunday night game because they loafed Dalton. They're up 7, and they were basically, first and close to goal situation, and they settled for the goddamn field goal. And if you're a gambler, the worst thing you want when you have a team laying 4 is having them go up 10 with about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's just, even when the defense isn't prevent, they still just lack the aggressiveness and the tenaciousness that was there for the first 3.5 quarters. And when they're up 10, it just seems far too often that they are just willing to concede a touchdown, or just they're not going to give up the big play, yet they're going to give up 80 yards in 7 plays, and then boom, that's exactly what happened, and Cincinnati ends up worse. I mean, they ended up tying the game, and then the Bengals still ended up being the Bengals when all was said and done, and Andy Dalton can just post that prime time record on his bathroom mirror when he's brushing his teeth for motivation. But yeah, you said it about the Raiders. Like 4 weeks ago, they were in the playoffs and everyone was giving them props. They've come back to earth. Everyone's loving the Packers again. That was a great show they had in the second half against the Vikings. What was this? Seattle's now in the wild card hunt again. The AFC South suddenly has lots of juice. I don't know if you want to call it real juice or the frozen orange juice that you make, you add water to it, but all of a sudden the Colts have won a couple in a row, Houston's won a couple in a row, the Jaguars are right in it. I kind of want the Jaguars to win the AFC South, and then you can, they'll host a home game and play like a wild card team like Kansas City or the Steelers. You probably want to bet, those other teams rather than the home team in the AFC South, because I think Bortles was kind of a meathead of a quarterback, whereas, Indianapolis, if they win the South, you've got to worry about luck, and then Houston is a clown town team too, but their defense is playing much better now. I guess it took them 2 months for them to wake up. And now the Chiefs, despite the worry factor with Andy Reid, all of a sudden they've got the inside edge of the wild card. So with this type of weird season, with all these top-heavy teams, with Carolina and New England with big wins, and a lot of these division races being close to settled, you have all these wild card teams anywhere between 4 and 6 to 6 and 4 that are right in. I mean, in the NFC, Atlanta they're limping. They're 6 and 4, I believe. You trust them to win one of those wild card spots, or you lean to someone like Seattle. 2 weeks ago, the Rams were in a good spot. Now they're 4 and 6. So, some people don't like it with these. In Tampa, I mean, you can't discount Tampa now? I mean, a lot of these teams now, some people must not like it because they're not really good teams, but it's still entertaining because you got to gamble on these games. Like the Tampa game, all of a sudden this Tampa game is a good game, even though it's like 5 and 5 or 4 and 6 or whatever. But it's got playoff implications, so you kind of have to pay attention to it.
Yeah,
it's
a little
like
life.
The entire league is one big NFC East right now.
These two great analogies by Andy in Seattle tonight. The one big NFC East, and then the thing about the frozen orange juice. It brought me back to some memories from when I was younger, when I was a little kid. That was great. Okay, so let's go to John in Connecticut. Let's hear about week number 11 in the NFL, where the Carolina Panthers went 10-0, and the Packers had a big win against the Vikings in a big showdown game.
Yeah, I guess I'll just talk about the Packers. Andy did a nice job there with the rest of the league. I was pretty disappointed here on the show last week about the Packers' chances, but they got back to the kind of football they were playing the first 6 weeks of the season. And I'm going to say something like I never thought I'd ever say about this team. Aaron Rodgers is not the key to this team winning games. I mean, obviously, he's going to play a huge role if they're going to win a championship, but for them to be a successful team, they did two things on Sunday that they had not done in their 3-game losing streak. Number one, they finally ran the ball. I don't know what the hell was up with Eddie Lacy this season. I mean, he had nagging injuries. People said he was too overweight. He honestly, if you watched some of the games earlier this season, he was not hitting the hole well. Like, they were just being easy cut to, go up the middle. He would, bounce runs to the outside. He just had horrible vision. But you did not see that on Sunday. He was running down a hill, very powerful, and that definitely softened things up on the outside, and Rodgers was able to make some plays and find his receivers. James Jones had some unbelievable catches. So that was a huge key. And number two, their defensive line was just unbelievable. Minnesota could not handle them. They had 6 sacks, which was very reminiscent of how their defense played earlier in the season. So those were the two things that you really liked. I really liked to see out of the Packers on Sunday. And if they can give that kind of effort again, the rest of the season, I feel much, much better about their chances, especially if they're going to run the ball and pressure the quarterback like they did. Again, Rodgers is Rodgers. He's going to make plays and score points and do his thing. But if this team is going to win a Super Bowl, they're going to have to run the ball and get after the quarterback. And I was very pleased to see that on Sunday. You figured you should take care of business against the Bears on Thursday, but you never know. The division game, the Bears have been playing much better lately, but you figure they should win that one. And then a game against Detroit next Thursday, which is weird. They played 2 Thursdays in a row, but such is the schedule. And then we'll take our chances into December. So very pleased with the Packers and their win on Sunday.
Yeah, that was a big win. Definitely a big win. So now to Ron in New Jersey for his reflections on Week 11 NFL action.
Yeah, I actually think Andy hit the nail on the head when he said the entire NFL is, one big NFC East, where it's, I mean, the majority of the teams are stuck between 2-8 and 4-6, and it's bad when a 2-7 Cowboys team beats a bad Dolphins team, and all of a sudden everybody's talking about them making a run at their division. I mean, it's that bad.
Unbelievable.
This year, it's just that it's a lot of parity, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because you get a lot of competitive games and a lot of games coming down to the end. But I think the AFC South has become very entertaining. Like Andy said too, with the Jaguars, the Texans all of a sudden putting things together, and the Colts actually surviving with Hasselbeck. And my God, can we all agree that there's something fundamentally wrong with the Atlanta Falcons?
Yeah.
I mean, it obviously it wasn't Mike Smith who made that team into a lackadaisical, vanilla team for those years. There's something fundamentally wrong with that team, and we all know who it is, and that is Mr. Boring Matt Ryan, Matty Ice. I mean, he has all the skill and the tools in the world, and he just cannot come up big in a big spot for the life of him. Going back to college, same thing. I mean, he was, a big-time quarterback prospect, and if you remember the games he put up in college, I mean, a lot of them was, 15 of 25 for 150 yards and a touchdown. And he's been that same way now. And it's, I don't see the Falcons going anywhere with him as the quiz. He's like a more boring version of Matt Schaub, if that's
wow.
If that's even possible. I swear to God, I thought Schaub was out of the league, and he's actually the starting quarterback for the Ravens this week. So,
ooh,
goes to show what I know.
Yeah, that's a big injury for the Ravens. Oh, yeah, right. Well, it's a big injury for the Ravens, but their season's done. Like, they're done. Although they did win the game against the Rams and kind of won the game before. Boy, what a year this is in the NFL. It's crazy. So let's go to the picks then. I don't think there's much else to say. So, Ron, you are first. You went 4-0 last week, including that game you mentioned with the Colts. That was a great, great pull by you. I was like, the Falcons are probably going to just get this one, and then they'll move on, and then they'll take the next game. No, they lost. So you nailed it with the Colts +6. That was great. So now let's go to you now for the Week 12 NFL picks. It doesn't get any easier. There's a lot of really crazy lines out there. So let's hear it, Ron.
Yeah, I'm going to take 2 games from Thanksgiving, actually. And the first one is going to be the opener. And I know Andy's feelings on the Eagles and Lions. It's a hot poo game. It's for you guys on the West Coast, you can sleep through it on Thanksgiving morning. But I will be in front of the TV watching that at 12:30 to see 2 very nondescript teams play each other. But I like the Detroit Lions. I think it's a pick'em line right now against the Eagles. So I'll take the Lions as a pick'em. the Eagles are in a free fall. I mean, you got ex-players today calling out current players on the team, calling out DeMarco Murray and Byron Maxwell, saying that they're not trying in the games. They're trying to sabotage Chip Kelly. I mean, it's a disaster in Philadelphia, and I was wrong. I'll admit it. I was wrong last year. I thought Chip Kelly would be here for a long time, but I could definitely see him getting frustrated and leaving after this year. And the Lions have actually played better in recent weeks, and Thanksgiving is their thing, and I know they don't always play well on Thanksgiving, but I do think they're the better team right now. So first game, I'll take the Lions and pick them over the Eagles. And my second pick is going to be the nightcap on Thanksgiving. I like the Packers -9 over the Bears. I do think last week was a wake-up call for the Packers. I think they're like John said, if Eddie Lacy gets rolling, and Aaron Rodgers, of course, he's going to be on target. I don't see the Bears putting up much of a fight in Green Bay on Thanksgiving night. So my two picks are Detroit and Green Bay -9.
Very nicely done, Ron. And what a way to usher in the Thanksgiving weekend with some good football and hopefully good picks. Good luck to the picks, Ron. We'll see how that goes. So now, Andy, almost turkey time. So let's get your Week 12 NFL picks.
Turkey time. Yeah. So game number one, listen, there's certain storylines that are somewhat fabricated, but you can kind of buy into. And then there are certain storylines that are fabricated and you were never, ever, ever, ever going to buy into. Like next week's game, the Ravens versus the Browns. Tirico and Gruden are going to call that game like both teams are good and there's actual reasons to watch that game. But as Ron said, one of the quarterbacks is Matt Schaub, and the other quarterback is, I don't know, Hoyer. And both coaches are just long in the tooth, and well, actually they're not long in the tooth, but they're just tough to root for. Like, I'm sorry, Browns versus Ravens, get your Christmas shopping and Hanukkah shopping done. I mean, that game is so unwatchable. But Gruden will be like, oh, you can see it. You can see the talent in both these teams. I would not want to play these teams next year. Like, oh my God. Anyway, back to the fabricated stories that do have some kind of juice. Dallas, just because of the way the NFC East is constructed right now, 8-8 could win it, 9-7 could win it, and why can't Dallas run the table? Stranger birds have flown, and maybe they're going to regret that game against Tampa because they could definitely use one extra win at this time. But why not them? They're 3-7. They're playing Carolina. I know Carolina's 10-0, but they're going on the road. Romo's back. Bryant's a playmaker. Witten's a safety blanket. Hardy's an asshole, but he's really good at defense. And I think Riverboat Ron and G-Reg Olsen and Cam Newton in the running game, they've had a great season. I'm not taking away anything from Cam Newton. He's been magnificent. They're scoring points. Like, they're not a team that you would expect to score 38 points because of their style. They're not engineered for that, but they scored over 40 against the Redskins. They scored over 30 against the Packers, and they've just been doing it. But as you get later into the season, I think they're going to feel the pressure of being undefeated. And at this point, they can lose a game, but I think they'll still feel the pressure. And Dallas, they got back to the wall type of pressure on them, the good kind of pressure. There's Cardwell type pressure, and then there's pressure where you need to produce. And Tony Romo's had his shortcomings, but one thing you can't take away from him is the ability to pull shit out of his ass. And I think on Thursday we'll see one of those games. It might be fool's gold, but which in the long run, if you're anti-Dallas, you'd like to see. You're like, LOL, Dallas. They thought they had a chance. So you kind of might want to build that up a bit. Thanksgiving games can be kind of crazy, and the line is basically screaming, why is Dallas even in this game. Like if whatchamacallit, if Castle or the former Oklahoma State guy with the red hair, what's his name? Whedon. If Whedon was playing, Carolina's probably, giving 7 points or something like that. So what they're saying is Romo is more than your standard 6-point, home versus road point swing, indicator. So give me Dallas, and I'll go down with the ship if so be it. But give me Dallas for game number 1. Game number 2. Gosh, this is a garbage game, but I'm going to take Jacksonville getting 4 against San Diego. I don't know. Poor Yachts. I mean, San Diego is just a flaming clown car at this point. They only scored 3 points against Kansas City, but more. How did Kansas City score 33 points? I actually didn't watch a snap of that game, but Kansas City. Maybe it's Andy Reid and his potion, and now all of a sudden they can't be stopped. I thought their season was over when Jamal Charles got out for the year, but they were able to score 33 last week. They've got life in the wild card, and but speaking of San Diego, they have to go across the country. They're hapless, they're hopeless. They've got 2 wins. Maybe it's time to start thinking about going 2-14 and getting a nice draft pick. It's hard to fathom. Rivers had a great year last year, throwing all these touchdown passes, and now we're getting the other side of the coin. Obviously, losing their best receiver, or maybe the 2 best receivers, hurt them. And this Jacksonville team, we all watched them play Tennessee for. I don't know why we watched Tennessee Jacksonville last week, but we did. And Gus Bradley worries you. I don't know if he's just one of those ooga booga guys that's more into red zone field goals and winning games 10-9, but that might come to bite him in the fanny at some point. But and you're worrying about Blake Bortles. He kind of has a little Tannehill in him where he's got like a 2-cent head, although he's got a great arm. But the reason why I'm taking Jacksonville, A, San Diego's hapless, and B, they do have really, really good receivers. And C, I think Yeldon's kind of a better than average running back. And again, A, San Diego is completely hapless. Jacksonville, they've got life in this AFC South, and they're giving 4. I think they should be able to win this game by that margin, unless San Diego does something very San Diego, and then that would be like, well, that's why we don't mess around with San Diego anymore.
Yeah, I learned that lesson. That's a good point there, Andy. Thanks for the picks. We are going to give you +1 for the Cowboys because that's how I see it in the Vegas Insider consensus. So they're getting it, but it doesn't really mean anything realistically. But we may as well take any advantage you can get. So +1 for the Cowboys against Carolina. And now it is my turn for picks. Seeing that Andy took the Cowboys, I will stay out of that one this week, and I'm going to go with this instead. My alternate pick for game number 1, the Raiders. They were looking really good to be a wild card contender. 3 losses later, they're 4-6. But you know what? It's not like they've lost every game by resounding margins. They just have looked really tough. They really just had a tough time against good defenses. I mean, Detroit's defense is good. I mean, I don't know if it's anything you're going to write home about, but it's a good defense. And the Raiders also played against the Vikings, who really shut them down. And then they played the Steelers, who didn't shut them down, but they lost anyway, despite the fact that, they were scoring points on them at will anyway. So it's a mixed bag. I mean, they played some good defenses. They played some not so good defenses. The Titans are just a pit of losing and a pit of conservative play calling. So I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for the Oakland Raiders to get their bounce back win. I know that Derek Carr is really not as good as he looked early on in the season. It's not as accurate with deep throws as you would expect. But Amari Cooper still is doing a great job this season. And I think if they can commit to the run, Latavius Murray should be able to establish an offense for them. And the Titans, look, they were at Jacksonville. They had so many opportunities to either tie the game or build the lead, or they could have gone for it in that Thursday night game, and they didn't. That came back to bite them. So I feel like stuff like that will happen. I feel like Jack Del Rio is a better coach than Mike Mularkey. So I like the Raiders. We'll go Raiders -1.5 at the Titans, game number 1. Game number 2. I like this line because when you talk about the Broncos, you talk about a team getting 5.5 at home against the visiting New England Patriots. You're talking about Bill Belichick having a good beat. Oh, no, sorry. That would actually refute my point. No, but what you're talking about is a great defense, and this defense is really going on strong. The Broncos are the healthier of the two teams, even though they lost Peyton Manning. But when you talk about overall roster, their defense is playing is healthier. Their offense is healthier than, other than the quarterback, their offense is healthier than the Patriots, who've lost a bunch of guys on their offense. So I think the Broncos will keep this thing closer than 5.5. Maybe they won't win, but I love the Broncos at home. They've only lost 2 games in like 4 years at home. And they haven't lost a game since December 2013 against the Chargers at home. So with Manning or without Manning, I think that defense will overcome. I love the Broncos to be a competitor in this Sunday Night Football game at the end of the week. Broncos plus 5.5 versus the Patriots. And to recap, Raiders -1.5 at the Titans for week number 12. Dave in the City picks. All right, so let's now go to John in Connecticut to week number 12 picks. And John, it's all yours as we work our way towards Turkey Day. It's kind of cool that the Packers are in it this year on Thanksgiving. It must be quite a thrill. Am I right, John?
Well, they have played the Lions a number of times over the years on Thanksgiving. So
Right.
Not new in that regard. It just knew that they're playing the night game at home. That they're having a home Thanksgiving game, which is kind of the thrill this year, and they're going to be retiring Brett Favre's number at halftime, so it'll be quite the scene.
Oh, yeah.
In Lambeau.
No doubt.
Yeah. But all right, so we'll go to the picks, and I have a checker on a checker here with Andy, and I really don't want to change it because I absolutely love the pick, and I got to go with the Cowboys. He's absolutely right. This is kind of like the backs against the wall scenario where Romo kind of shows you like how valuable he is to the nation once again, and you're going to build up the Cowboys after this week. Oh, here come the Cowboys! Here come the Cowboys! Only to lose like against the Redskins or the Eagles or some shit team like that the next couple weeks, and it'll be all over. But for 1 week only, we'll get the media talking about the Cowboys again. Clearly he's like the whole key to their team. They're at home. Carolina, they played awesome this year. And criticize me for saying this, but I still don't think they're that great of a team. But they do well. They run the ball well. Cam does a great job, minimizing his mistakes, and they're pretty solid on defense. But they're not a team that like really scares you. But they're frankly they're due for a loss. They're not going to go through the season undefeated. I don't think anyone thinks that, and this is the perfect spot for them to lose a game. So give me Dallas. I think you said +1, so we will take that gladly, and we think Dallas is going to win the game. So for game 2, I actually, Dave, you have a line on the Chiefs and Bills. I could not find a line on that.
Yeah, I do. The line is currently Chiefs giving 5 at Arrowhead.
Okay, well, we will take that. We will take the Chiefs -5. They're just on an absolute roll right now. Who would have thought it when they were 1-5 and literally going nowhere, and all of a sudden they just completely turned their play around. I don't know what it is. I think it all coincided with the Jamal Charles injury. Actually, they haven't lost since. Whether it be this guy West that they had in there, or he got hurt, and Spencer Ware came in. They're just running over teams. Alex Smith is playing very efficient football. Their defense is playing great, and then the Chargers just couldn't do anything on Sunday. And I expect more of the same against the Bills, whose offense is not very good at the moment. I know McCoy is having a decent season, but Tyrod Taylor looked like he had a broken collarbone the other night at the end of the game. Even if he plays, he doesn't look like he's going to be effective. EJ Manuel stinks, so let's get him in there. But I just think the Chiefs are rolling right now, and they're very good at home. So you figure they can cover 5 points here pretty easily. So give me the Chiefs -5 and Dallas +1 for the picks.
All right, very nice. So on the Panthers, I would want to add that as far as the offense, I mean, it seems like Cam Newton makes all his passes to Greg Olsen, and so it's like if you can just take him out of the game, I feel like their offense would really, really struggle. I mean, how big of a factor do you think that Olsen would be in that offense? Would it be that easy to neutralize it just by taking him out?
You mean Greg Olsen? Is that
Yeah, Greg Olsen. Yeah, like if the Cowboys put two guys on him, like wouldn't that like lessen their offense by 50%?
Well, I mean, you would figure, but I mean, Olsen is really good. I mean, I have him on my fantasy. He produces like every single week. But he's hard to double. I mean, they have the receivers aren't great. Devin Funchess has stepped up lately, but and that's certainly a game plan that Dallas can employ if they so choose. But I mean, Olsen he'll find a way to get open.
Interesting stuff, John. Interesting stuff. So let's get to the previews for Thanksgiving week in the NFL. We'll start with that Carolina-Dallas game. Andy and John gave their predictions already. Let's go to Ron's take on the game. Is this a bounce back? And this is interesting because, it's hard to imagine that a 10-0 team versus a 3-7 team would be a huge playoff implications game, but it is. It really is. Like, these two teams, this is a big, big game for both teams. Carolina could extend their chance at home field. Dallas can extend their chance of getting to the playoffs. So there's a lot on the line here despite the records. So who do you like in this game, Ron?
I'm with everybody else. I like Dallas, actually. In their big setting at home on Thanksgiving. Carolina's 10-0. I mean, they really don't have a lot to play for. Obviously, they're probably going to play well in the game. It'll probably be close. I do like Dallas, and that's not to take anything away from Carolina. I think they are having a really, really good year, and in my opinion, Cam Newton is probably the leader for MVP of the league. I mean, he carries that team on his shoulders with the weapons that they have. The fact that they're 10-0 is really remarkable. So I don't want to take anything away from them, but I do think Dallas will win the game.
I agree with you 100% on Cam Newton. I mean, I was talking about how basically his offense would be reduced by 50% by taking out one guy, but he does so much for that offense knowing that he doesn't have a lot of options to pass to. I mean, you talk about Ted Ginn Jr., like that guy drops passes. He's been known for it. He's an artist at it. So, I mean, there's not a lot of choices. They had Kelvin Benjamin at the beginning of the season in preseason, but then he got hurt and he's out for the year. Can only imagine how that offense would be with him and Olsen together. That'd be something. So, yeah, agreed on all of that. I think it's a quad checker and a checker for the Dallas Cowboys. And, some of it will be for the contest, some of it won't be. But overall, we all like the Cowboys in this one. So now to the next game. Bears-Packers. Now, Ron, you already like the Packers in this game. I'm imagining John does too. You mentioned that earlier. So let's go to Andy for his take on the game. Chicago at Green Bay.
Yeah, we're flying. We are flying again on Green Bay. We FML because I could probably count the times I bet against Rodgers with one hand, and every freaking time you're like, this is why you don't bet against Aaron Rodgers. And I bet on Aaron Rodgers 4 times in a row when they went through this funk. Carolina, the Lions, the 2 games before that. And then I just figured the game was at Minnesota this year, or last week, and Minnesota's defense had looked so good leading up to this game. I just thought that the Green Bay funk would last one more week, and LOL Hibbert, that didn't happen. So now it's Lou the Lang, the Lou again, like the king of the North is Aaron Rodgers again. And, the Bears, everyone was giving Cutler and company so much love, but when Cutler doesn't have Alshon Jeffrey, who I think his status is unknown, and he doesn't have Forte to throw the ball to or hand the ball off to, and when he's not playing San Diego, when he's not playing San Diego on a Monday night in a lifeless San Diego stadium, the Bears are back to being where they were at the beginning of the year. Not as bad as the Jimmy Clausen Bears, where they went all the way out to Seattle to go 4-0 or 3-0 every single time and punt 12 times. But Cutler without his weapons is a neutered Cutler, and I think the game being on Thanksgiving and at night, all these blanket cliches will actually mean something. I think Aaron Rodgers will have a show. He loves beating the Bears. Like, he loves making Cutler smell it, I think, because I don't know what his career record or rating or touchdown-interception ratio is against the Bears, but it's got to be pretty dominating. So give me the Packers. I'll bet on them for sure on Thanksgiving night.
That'll be a popular pick around the country, no doubt. So the Packers trying to continue their climb towards the playoffs they're in control, but this is a big game. This is another good game for them against their arch rival. So we will see about it. Now to Ron in New Jersey, I want to get your feeling for Buffalo, Kansas City. Now here's the thing: you've been on Rex Ryan all year. You're not a fan, and they lost at New England. Do you give them any shot to beat Kansas City in Kansas City with their Chiefs looking pretty good lately? They've won a bunch of games in a row. So who do you like between the Bills and the Chiefs?
Not Rex Ryan. That's for goddamn sure. No, I do like the Chiefs, and I'll try to put my Rex Ryan bias aside. But Mike Francesa was right when he said it today. I mean, the Bills just always seem to shoot themselves in the foot. They stupid penalties, put themselves, call timeout early in the quarters. I mean, it's just bad coaching. And Tyrod Taylor at the end of the game yesterday looked like he was limping pretty heavily, and he hurt his shoulder or something like that. So, if he can't go, I don't see a way that they can go into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs. So, it's sad to say, but when you look at the coaching matchups, I guess I would take Andy Reid over Rex Ryan. So, yeah, I like the Chiefs in that game.
Okay, so now let's get Andy's additional thoughts on this game. Anything else you wanted to give to us as far as the Bills and Chiefs?
No, I think the magic carpet ride for Kansas City continues for at least one more week. I think the Bills are 80% bluster, 20% decent skill. I'm not as anti-Rex Ryan as Ron, but I do love mocking him from time to time. Like, I bet Rex was like pounding his chest if you add up the fourth quarter from their first game against New England Week 2 plus their first quarter against them last night. He's probably like, that's the greatest half of football that you'll ever see this year. Like, he's right. Like, Francesca's right. He'd rather win or rather lose. He'd rather lose like 7-2 than win 30-27. He doesn't really know what he's doing on offense. Like Ron said perfectly. Like, he doesn't know how to manage the clock. He doesn't keep his timeouts, and then when the fourth quarter rolls around, his offense is it just looks like complete crap. Kind of like UCLA right now in this Maui game, 39-16. I don't even think Bill Self can be Bill Self in this game.
That's pretty funny. Can you out-self Bill Self? That's crazy. That's pretty funny. Let me just put a ribbon on this one tonight then, and I'll just give you some other featured games. We'll just roll them out. Tampa Bay, Indianapolis. Again, we mentioned it. Who would have guessed this would have been a big game? But it is. This is a real opportunity for both teams to get to their division title. So this is interesting. Either that or the wild card. Minnesota, Atlanta, same idea. I think that the Vikings desperately need a win, though, I think, just to get themselves rolling. But they did have the win against Oakland, so they should be okay. Atlanta's the one that's really struggling. They need to win. Pittsburgh, Seattle, you've got the Steelers with another opportunity, but that's going to be impossible to win at Seattle. That's going to be probably not going to happen. And then finally, the Patriots, Broncos, always a good show, although it's different this time because Manning will not play. So that's going to do it for the most part, except I want to get you any other games you guys wanted to highlight, which include these that I just mentioned. So, John, any other game? Like, is there another game that you wanted to take a look at and share with us for your predictions or what have you?
No, I mean, a lot of competitive games this week. No one mentioned the classic NFC East matchup between the Giants and Redskins. Who the hell knows what's going to happen in that one? It's pretty unpredictable. Texans and Saints. If I did not get a Chiefs line, the Texans would have been my second pick. They're definitely playing much better football, and the Saints are just a joke. So those are kind of the other games that were, no one really mentioned. And then, of course, that wonderful Monday night game. I don't even think fantasy football can save that one. That is just a horrible, horrible game.
Yeah, I mean, that Titans-Jags game, it looked bad on paper, and here I was watching the end of it anyway. So, probably just we're all going to be roped into it anyway. We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, I have some dignity and I don't watch most of it. Ron, any other games you wanted to highlight before we go?
No. I think we covered all the good ones.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm good.
All right, Andy.
Yeah, let me know when John Gruden tells the audience that Matt Schaub, all he wants to do is compete, and he's going to prove he wants to compete. He got run out of town in Houston, and he's got some good years left. Man, I was killed for him in my team. He's such a fraud. He got $6.5 million a year to just spew nonsense. Gosh. Anyway, and then the Washington Giants game is I don't know. I think the line, like the Giants are giving 2. It's screaming take the Giants, but I don't know. I would lean the Redskins. You had a caller today called Mike. One of those Magic Giants callers, like they're gonna win the division and then they're gonna go all the way to the Super Bowl. And I mean, these people exist. We mingle and they live amongst us, but they're around us everywhere. These Magic Giant fans.
No, you can't make it up, right? The memes exist for a reason. All the good, all those things. So,
I was going to say, just like how Ron said, if Rutgers makes a bowl at 5-7, he'll never come back on the Kids Club again. If that caller is right and the Giants go to the playoffs and end up winning the Super Bowl, I will never come on this show again. That is just I don't know. That is just crazy.
I couldn't even imagine it. But I thought that the Bengals were going to beat the Texans a couple weeks ago too, and football's just crazy like that. So we'll see.
Dave, if that happens and the Giants do end up doing that, you can switch me out next year for Jeremy Giants.
Jeremy Giants.
Consider me retired.
Oh, no. Oh, let's hope that calamity does not take place. All right, guys. Well, it's been really fun doing all these games. Again, we have 4 weeks to go, including this one, so next week's week 14. Wow, it's just like that. It's all coming to an end. So I want to wish you guys a great, happy Thanksgiving. I know that I understand Andy's coming out west. I know the rest of you will be trying to keep warm out in the east. Thanks so much. Have a great Turkey Day. I don't know if you got traditions or anything, but, Ron, anything you guys do in particular for the Thanksgiving holiday?
Yeah, I eat turkey and watch football.
That's good enough for me. John?
Yeah, that's pretty much the plan. I mean, obviously, go over to, my grandma's and see the rest of the family and that kind of thing, where the game's always on in the background. So, and we're supposed to get some warm weather here, supposed to be 60 degrees on Thursday and Friday.
Whoa.
So maybe we can get get a quick 9 holes in, which would be nice. So
huge.
Just a great weekend, and looking forward to all the football.
Awesome. And Andy, as I mentioned, I know that you usually take that trip to Palm Springs, so more of that in store, I take it?
Yeah, first world problems 101. Gotta eat, gotta watch pigskin, gotta play some golf, and that's basically it. And then once Thanksgiving ends, stay away from any of the retail stores, any of the roads leading to a mall, because Black Friday is just a disaster. With all the people that are going to the malls and stuff to save couple dollars on shirts and toys. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a maddening experience. I've tried it a couple of times. It is a mess. I'm not doing that again. So, guys, thanks again. Well, have a wonderful Thanksgiving break then. Enjoy it. And have some fun eating. Take care, you guys, and good luck to the Picks. Have a wonderful holiday.
Yeah, have a happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. Good luck, everyone. Good night.
All right, fellas. That's it for the moment. So we will leave you then to enjoy the rest of the Thanksgiving week. Have a wonderful time, everybody. Such a great time to spend with the Kids Club. Always a good show. And it will have some good shows at the table with the food and the football. And I hope you guys have a good time with that, too. So thanks again for listening, everyone. If you're looking for us, we're at DITCOW on Twitter, DITCOW.com on the web, and just look for DITCOW on the iTunes store. Enjoy your turkey. We'll see you next time.